Welcome to episode 9 of the Modern Agile Show. It's been almost a month since I recorded the last show. I am so sorry. I meant to be doing this at least 2 or 3 times a week, but have been just too busy lately. But I'm back, and I hope to make a whole bunch more shows in the next several weeks and onwards. So let's get started. Today I'm going to be talking quite a bit about a topic in this book. This book here is called Driving Fear Out of the Workplace. Really important book. Highly recommend you buy a copy and study it. And we are going to be looking at a section of this book which is quite important. The section of this book that I care about the most here right now is about something called the Cycle of Mistrust. The Cycle of Mistrust. So I'm going to read a little passage, and then I'm going to draw the diagram which represents the cycle on the whiteboard behind me. Okay, so they've been talking about how there can be mistrust between employees and managers, and so on. And they think of this as a kind of organizational flu, right? So the virus that causes the organizational flu starts with negative assumptions. These drive self-protective behaviors in a self-reinforcing pattern that repeatedly traps both managers and their employees. The cycle can start anywhere. So as we're going to see, it's going to begin with negative assumptions, but in this model, it could begin anywhere, as you'll see in a moment. So let's get into this model of the cycle of mistrust. Okay, so we can break out of it, because I think this is something that we see in numerous organizations. So it begins up here with what we'll call negative assumptions. Someone has negative assumptions about somebody else. Let me read what they say in the book about this. For example, a manager adopts negative beliefs about an employee's intentions, style, or behavior. Okay, that's an example, right? And really what we're going to be seeing here is on this continuum we have, for example, a manager here and an employee down here. Now this model works for other contexts. You could have parent and child, right? You could have politician and citizen. There's all kinds of things that can occur. But for this work today, we're going to talk about managers and employees, okay? So a negative assumption is formed about someone, in this case by the manager, about the employee. Okay, what happens next due to that negative assumption? Okay, next in the model, we go to a self-protective behavior. A self-protective behavior, okay? The manager does something to protect themselves. Given the negative assumption they had about the employee, they feel like, I got to do a protective stance. I got to do something to protect myself. Okay, interesting. Well, what's going to happen as a result of that? Here's what's going to happen as a result of that. The employee is going to experience something, okay, down here. So the employee is going to observed aggressive behavior. Some kind of observed aggressive behavior on the part of the manager. The manager did something to protect themselves. The employee observed it. Okay. Now that they've observed this aggressive behavior from the manager, what is the employee going to do? The employee is going to form a negative assumption. Negative assumption. I think I'm going to get this thing out of the way. So you can see this. Is that visible? Can you see that from the camera? I might be writing down too low here, and I have to bring this higher.
Yeah, you can see it.
You can see it. Thank you, Eva. Negative assumption. So, negative assumption up here by the manager. Self-protective behavior leading to an observed aggressive behavior on the part of the manager, right? The observation happening by the employee. The employee then saying, well, in that case, I'm forming a negative assumption about the manager. What'll happen next? Up here, we're going to have a self-protective behavior. The pattern's repeating, right? This self-protective behavior here on the part of the manager led to an observed aggressive behavior, which led to a negative assumption, which led to some more self-protective behavior. Once that self-protective behavior happens, what do you think occurs? Well, it's right over here. Observed aggressive behavior. The manager is now observing the aggressive behavior on the part of the employee. And this continues the cycle. Then they form a new negative assumption. And so it just keeps going round and round. My depiction of this isn't so pretty today, but you get the idea, right? That is a cycle of mistrust. Okay, so how do we break a cycle of mistrust? And before I get there, let me just get a little clearer about something, okay? Self-protective behavior. Let's talk about an example. The manager behaves in ways that are self-protective, acting to defend against the employee's potential to harm or hinder the manager. Harming or hindering the manager. Observed aggressive behavior, and that's actually just a shorthand for this. What they say in the book is observed aggressive, confusing, frustrating, or irritating behavior. Could be any one of those things. Again, that's aggressive, confusing, frustrating, or irritating behavior. That's what's happening in this observed part here. The employee sees the manager's self-protective behavior and interprets it as intended to harm or block the employee in some way. Okay. Negative assumptions based on this interpretation. So the negative assumption the employee feels, let's get an example. Based on this interpretation, the employee adopts negative beliefs about the manager's intentions, style, or behavior. The negative assumptions are multiplying between the manager and the employee. And back over here to the observed aggressive behavior, the employee acts in a self-protective way in order to defend against the manager's potential to harm or block the employee. It just continues. How do you break a cycle of mistrust? So we've all experienced this. I've experienced it in my own company here in Industrial Logic. I've seen it with clients. I've seen it in family situations. This is something that occurs all the time. So one of the ways they say that you need to really focus to fix this problem is you have to establish trust. You have to establish a workplace of trust. And here's a passage I want to read to you. We have found that when people understand the dynamics of the cycle and how it can influence behavior, they become both better able to let go of mistrust and more tolerant of feedback from others. In other words, it's very easy for anyone getting feedback in an environment of mistrust to take things personally and be offended by other people. alleging that they have some type of negative motive. But with a thorough understanding of the cycle, these tense situations can be viewed more objectively. And some of what might have gotten under someone's skin can be seen for what it is, a pattern of negative assumptions to be dealt with constructively. The trap can be avoided by seeing how the dynamics of the cycle work. When this understanding is coupled with an explicit vision of trust, a leader is in a strong place to begin turning around relationships that have become undermined by fear. And I just want to mention on the back of this book, I tweeted this today, one of the quotes by a couple of people who reviewed the book said, "Fear is an aggressive predator of joy and creativity in the workplace." An aggressive predator of joy and creativity in the workplace. That's what fear is. So getting rid of fear, driving fear out of the workplace is extremely important. The cycle of mistrust is really at the root of a lot of the problems around fear, okay? Especially between power situations like managers and employees. And so by understanding this model, you can begin to start attempting to get to the bottom of these assumptions. That's going to require creating an environment of trust. We'll talk about that in another episode, but I just wanted to introduce you to this today. Let's just check really quickly and see. We have maybe a few people following along today on Facebook. Please leave any messages, comments, questions you have. We will get back to them. And thanks for watching this short episode.